still open it up for public hearing, but then we won't vote.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the September 14th, 2016 meeting of the Ascension Parish Planning Commission. I would like to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance, if everyone would please rise for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And we will go to all members are present except for Mr. Dudley, who is out of town today, and we get the introduction of staff, please.
Stacy Webb, Secretary for Planning and Development.
Cody Martin, the attorney for the Planning Commission.
Jerome Fournier, Director of Planning and Development.
Eric Poche, Parish Planner with Planning and Development.
Lance Brock, Zoning Official, Ascension Parish.
Sean Chereau, Engineering Review Agency.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. I'd like to recognize also, we have several councilmen in the chamber tonight, including Councilman John Cagnalotti, Councilman Aaron Lawler, Councilman Bill Dawson I saw earlier, and Councilman Doc Satterley. Thank you all for being here tonight. All right, moving on to the chairman's comments. I'm going to reserve any comments right now until we go through our general business. Item number 7 is approval or denial of the minutes of the August 10th, 2016 Planning Commission meeting. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Christie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Moving on to item number 8, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Dumas, second by Mr. Chasson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any in opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes. Moving on to item number 9, public hearing to approve or deny the following preliminary plats. 9A, has that been staff removed or deferred from the agenda? 9A, Camellia Cove from Quality Engineering.
I will let Mr. Derek Murphy address
Okay.
that.
Mr. Murphy from Quality Engineering.
Good evening, Commissioners. How are y'all doing tonight? My name is Derek Murphy at Quality Engineering, representing America Homeland for Camellia Cove subdivision. Right now, we do have staff recommended approval, met everything, but in light of recent events, we're just asking tonight to defer to the next meeting in order to just make sure we address any additional items that need to be addressed.
All right. Cody, do we have to have a motion to officially defer that?
No, under the statute, it's deferred at the applicant's request, but we did set it for public hearing, so we just need to go ahead and open it and let anybody talk and then close it, and then we'll consider it again next month.
All right, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing on Camellia Cove. I would say, ask anybody who has signed up to speak. You have a time limit of 3 minutes. We want to make sure everybody gets their opportunity to be heard, so please adhere to the 3-minute time limit. Has anybody signed up to speak on this matter?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if I may, I think that I'd like to make clear to everybody in the public that no decision is going to be made tonight because it has been deferred. So if you want to withhold your comments and wait until next month, you can also do that.
Exactly. Okay. Who's first?
Jeff Heglin.
Mr. Hagelin. You here for the next one? Okay.
Jeff Pettit.
Mr. Pettit. Very good, thank you.
Aaron Lawler.
Mr. Lawler, Councilman. Okay, thank you.
Bill Dawson.
Councilman? Okay. You're here for Oakbourne too? Are you going to speak on B? Okay.
I think that's it.
All right, we'll go ahead and close the public hearing. The matter is deferred until next month. Item number 9B, Oakbourne Subdivision, McGlynn Taylor Incorporated.
Hi, I'm Ross Berthelot with Berthelot Holdings. I'm the developer of Oakbourne Subdivision. I reached out to Councilwoman Casso on August 1st and shared with her my plans for this subdivision development. I told her that I'd be available to answer any questions or concerns she or her constituents might have regarding my development, and she thanked me for contacting her and said she would let me know if there were any concerns. Just today, after lunch, I received a call from her asking me to consider deferring my project until next month in light of the recent devastating floods in the parish. She has received calls and emails concerning flooding in her district, and she thought it might be beneficial for all if I took some additional time to meet with the concerned residents and explain how my approved drainage plans will affect the area. So at her request, I would like to defer this item until the October meeting and take that time to address adjacent property owners' drainage concerns.
Okay. Thank you, sir. All right, we'll defer that, but if there are people signed up to speak on that, we'll go ahead and open a public hearing. And just as the last one, we're not going to take any action, but if you want to be heard tonight, you can. If you want to defer, you can do that. You can be heard tonight and next month if you'd like. So that being said, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And Mr. Hagelin, was he first?
Thank you, Mr. Pryor.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thanks again, Mr. Pryor.
Just a premature beep. You're good.
I was like, man, that's quick.
It's a fast 3 minutes.
It may be better to just speak the issues that I would have said tonight anyway, so Mr. Berthelot's here, he can hear those as well, and they may come across from Councilman Casso to them also. Obviously, there's some items that were on the agenda that dealt with some waivers, a waiver of the block requirement, and it looks like there's some discussion about the GS3 space being within the plans or being substituted for the block requirement. Obviously, there's also some indication that later on, if there's a connection between those two neighborhoods, obviously that green space is going to go away. There will be a street there. So one of the waivers of the block requirements, if that satisfies that waiver and it becomes a street, obviously you're losing that green space. There may be other green space there to counteract that. However, right across from there, in that same distance, you could have green space included in that area that aesthetically may be more valuable for that area. So I would like the commission to consider that. Even if that block space requirement is met, you can still not waive that provision and make sure that green space is still included in the plat. The traffic study obviously looks like that was done back in June before the recent incident. Mr. Pryor, you know, you and I live in the same neighborhood. There's two ways to 74, right? There's two ways out to 73. 74 to 73, or take Bluff Road to Seabro Road to get to 73. In the last few weeks, it's taken me an hour, 2 hours, just to get out of that little area sometimes in the morning. In the evening, coming here tonight, took me, go home, change clothes, come back to the commission meeting. Took me 45 minutes just to turn around and get back over here. It usually takes me 10, 15 minutes of time. So I don't know if the traffic study done in June, if a new one was done, would reflect any of these changes that we're experiencing in that area. There doesn't look like there's any room for development later on to widening any of those major arteries. There's no room to widen 74. There's no room to widen Bluff Road to Seabro Road. Certainly there's no room to widen Seabro Road. So maybe that traffic study needs to be updated with regard to that. I know he spoke briefly about some drainage issues that may have been reported. It's not real clear from the plat how the drainage is addressed to the adjacent neighborhood. Lakes at Dutchtown backs up against there. The drainage, the natural drainage servitude under the law, can't make one estate, can't burden another estate, that type of stuff, right? I'm not sure how they're addressing that issue, if they're putting a berm or if there's a swale. I know there's a swale called for in the planning.
You can finish up.
But that's one issue that I noticed. And last but certainly not least, the waiver of the setbacks. Obviously, there's the variances in the planning commission or in the uniform code. The variances require maybe 6 different levels. It's strict compliance. I don't think the planning commission or the uniform code places such a heavy burden that's so odd and abhorrent with the regulations to warrant a waiver of the setback to change it anywhere from 7 feet or 6 feet, depending on the housing size, to change that setback between the houses to make them closer together. I don't think there's any, or hasn't been any, of course, yet, testimony or anything along those lines about the reason to get around one of those 6 requirements in the variance. So I wanted to point those things out to you guys. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Hagelin. Appreciate it. Next,
Randy Ishii.
Mr. Ishii.
I'm Randy Ishii. I live in Lakes at Dutchtown, 13118 Oak Knoll. I am concerned about the drainage. We did not flood, our street did not flood in this last water occurrence. Our lakes are not back to normal yet. We were close. Those lakes were up over the levee out all the way out to the road for a couple of weeks. With just a little bit more water, I'm afraid our neighborhood would flood and back up in our drainage and our streets and our homes. I would like to see someone make sure that the drainage stays the same or is better than what it is now. Because like I said, our lakes are not back to normal. And when we start building these different subdivisions, there's been several added since I've been there. Traffic is a real big problem. Morning, afternoon, not just after the flood that we've had now, but I used to come home down 74, and traffic backs up from 73 past Lakes at Dutchtown now. It was backed up there this afternoon when I left to come over here. You can barely get around in Dutchtown and Geismar at this point. So if we add another subdivision, what is the parish going to do with traffic? And that's a big concern of mine, and the safety there. There are several accidents on that street. I used to see accidents as I was coming in from work down at Bluff in that curve. And this subdivision is going to be between us and Bluff. So there's a lot of concerns that I have about safety for the neighborhood that we have now. Also, as this is being built, the environmental impact on our neighborhood. As you're building houses in a subdivision, you have to deal with all the dust, the dirt, everything that we're going to have to breathe and inhale. So these are the items that I have in concern. I appreciate you listening for me tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Ishii.
Al Babin.
Mr. Babin.
Good evening. First, I appreciate the ability to talk on this issue. I'm just a dumb, tax-paying, retired citizen. I don't know anything about this subdivision. I don't know how to find out about this subdivision. I wish the first gentleman that stood up would contact me. I have 10 acres that runs, the longest part of my property runs right along what used to be a cow pasture where this is going. So I'm a major concern there. I'm only one taxpayer, but I'm a major concern there. I haven't done any traffic reports or studies, but I can tell you I stand on my front porch. I'm 1 mile from the intersection of 73 and 74. The traffic backs up almost all the way to Bluff. I watched it this afternoon. I had to go Bluff to Seabro to get here because I couldn't pull out my driveway. So there's a concern there. And of course, the historic flood of 2016, significant. If this subdivision in any way causes a funnel, I'm underwater. It goes through my property. There's a big ditch runs from the wetlands between me and Bluff Road through the cow pasture onto 74. In fact, during the recent flood, 74 ditch came through my pond and back out again to the cow pasture. Y'all, just for recognition, my property is the one with the big oak tree and the pond and the 2 deer. I got 385-foot white fence.
I know well.
It's in my not my backyard. It's in my front yard now. So I believe in progress. I believe that people have to have the opportunity to make profit. I have no issue with that. I just need to be assured that more than the normal preparations are done to ensure that all of a sudden I don't go under because somebody else is making profit. I've been there 22 years. And everything you heard about traffic is absolutely correct. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Babin.
James Falgu.
Mr. Falgu. A little different role tonight.
Just a little bit. Thank you so much for hearing me. Like I said, this is the kind of development we want, though. We want the 70 big lots, 175 feet across the front, 140, not these 50-foot by 100-foot lots. I have no issues with the side setbacks. I mean, 5 feet from the sides, that's what the zoning used to require, which I'm fine with that versus, the variance on the lot frontage, stick with one zoning. It made everything nice and simple. Everybody in that zoning had to abide by it. The thing I'm here for basically is sooner or later, we got to question these traffic impact studies. I mean, you live off that road, and you can't tell me that's a C. There's no way that's a C. There's roughly, from 73, 74 intersection of Bluff Road, there's over 20-something potholes in that road. How can we allow any more cars down that road? There's no way that that is a C. Before this, during the summer, it took me 7 minutes from Bluff Road at an intersection to take a left onto 74 with the planned traffic. That's at 4:30 in the afternoon. It's blacked up from Bluff Road to 73, 74. That's before the storm. That's a C? That's not a C. That's an F. So we have to take a more aggressive approach to these traffic impact studies, because as far as we want this kind of development, we want the big lots, but at this time on this road, you know we can't handle this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bowden.
Bill Dawson.
Thank you. First let me say that I represent District 2, so this is not in my district. So I'd like to just kind of talk generally about the development at this point in time. Before I start there, though, I'd like to thank the commissioners, and I know I have two from my district here. One that was flooded. I think Julio probably wasn't, but that's probably the demographics of the parish, that 50% of the people in here were flooded. And, I know that in Maury's case, he, had significant losses, and he's here tonight, trying to do the business of the parish, to try to improve the parish. I know all of you guys are doing the same thing, so I, for one, appreciate that. Thank you. As far as development at this point in time, I don't have to tell you guys the situation that we're in. We have our school kids going to school in another parish. We have them going to school on shifts. We have our roads are, for the most part in my district, they're blocked with debris, and they're one way. We have 50,000 residents in our parish that are homeless. I call them homeless because they can't go back into their house. I think that should all be taken into consideration, and I know it's not strictly your purview, and I think that we on the council need to take that into consideration about the future development. There's also been relaxations on the elevation that we have to build houses to for the flood. So, I don't know the answer to this, but, we have a temporary change in our regulations that allows us to build at the one above the BFE without taking into account the most recent flood. So if we approve any new subdivisions, are they going to be able to take advantage of this relaxation that we did? Those are just some of the questions that we have. I think that we need to take some time, and us as a parish council and you guys too, and we need to look at a little better study of what the results of this flood was, and what do we want to do as a parish, at what levels do we want to protect, and those decisions we haven't made yet. So, I appreciate the developers that they deferred that, but I think that we need to take that a more permanent path, and maybe look at some type of pause on the residential development. Additionally, we've got Jerome and his people. They're in charge of the permits and the evaluations on these 10 to 15,000 homes that have been flooded. So, I don't think we ought to put an extra burden on them to take them away from this, task that helps people get back in their houses. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Anybody else?
That's it.
All right. We'll close it. Well, let me just, before I close the public hearing, I'll say thank y'all for. Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry.
he did. I think he did on the first one.
And he deferred
Okay.
to this one, right?
Yeah. Well, one of them deferred, but you can have the floor, Councilman.
Thank you. First of all, I don't want to reiterate everything that Councilman Dawson said, but I agree with it wholeheartedly, so I'm not going to go over everything he said. I'm going to go for something a little different, since we have two shots of the apple on this one. One of the things I noticed on the preliminary plat is that it's a private subdivision, and this requires that the Planning Commission look at the restrictions of the subdivision. And I don't know how familiar all of you are with the restrictions of the subdivision, but I think that needs to be looked at on every single one of these. And I speak from experience on this
because many of the subdivision restrictions contain language in there which will allow the developer to basically do anything he or she wants if they still own a lot in that subdivision, meaning that those restrictions have no meaning as long as the developer owns one lot. And they can take a house, if they have regulations that the house has to be 2,400 square feet. If they own one lot, they can tell people, you know what, I can't sell the lots. Y'all may have bought houses here, and y'all may have built some really nice houses, but I'm gonna allow 1,500 square foot houses. That's the kind of thing that we also have to look at. I don't know if y'all have looked at the restrictions on this one. I urge you to. It's something I'd like to see made open to the public. I don't see any reason why it couldn't be. So I ask that for the next meeting, we have these restrictions that will have to be approved by y'all, submitted basically to the public so we can look at it to make sure that they're in line with what they have to be. The traffic, the drainage, it's all a problem. I'm not going to reiterate all of that, but those are issues that we can talk about again. Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, Councilman. No one else? Yes, sir. Oh. If you, look, we'll let you be heard. There was a gentleman behind you who raised his hand first. Okay, well, come forward. You can come forward, please. And again, if you weren't here for the beginning, you have 3 minutes. Please try and adhere to that. And since you have not signed up, fill out a card, but give us your name for the record, please.
My name is Joel Sanchez. I don't know what all was said, and if it was deferred, I'll keep it in mind with keeping something simpler. I live on Highway 74. My family and I own Kaleidoscope, the Learning Center, which is located on 74, very close to where the subdivision is being built. Obviously, we're very pro-growth. Our biggest concern with right now is with the flood. I just think as a parish, as a committee, as a council, it would be wise to kind of put some things off, which it sounds like they did, that y'all have done. Y'all have deferred this. So I was glad to hear about that. My biggest concern with the report that they turned in was the traffic study. I've reached out to DOTD trying to find out if Highway 74 has a current letter grade. I haven't been able to find that out. I was told Highway 73 is graded as an F. 74 obviously filters into 73 right there, and the traffic's pretty bad, so I would imagine it's similar to that. In the study that they presented, it says it's a C or better. I think that's very ranging. I think my kid came home and I asked them how they did on their test, and they told me C or better. It'd be a big difference if it's an A or if it's a C. I would like for it to be more specific. The other biggest concern with that traffic study is it was done in June. They're very close to 4 major schools. Spanish Lake, Dutchtown Primary, Dutchtown Middle, and Dutchtown High. I think any traffic study being done for that subdivision should be done August through May during school. There's about 5,000 people between kids and faculty that go to school between 6 and 8 right there. And if they're saying a C or better, I think if you factor in those additional 5,000 cars along with buses who don't speed up the process on the roads, I think that C might be worse if it would have been done August through May. Was kind of the main thing that I want to bring up. And then there was also something with the drainage. It asks where the overflow drainage would be in the report. It says it's 60 acres that water would go to. It concerns me. I'm assuming that 60 acres is the land surrounding it going to the west, because to the east of it is Lakes of Dutchtown and Moss Point. If they're saying if their drainage was backed up or that something couldn't hold, like the storm we got, it would just kind of overflow into that 60 acres. My concern is 2 years from now or 5 years from now, that 60 acres, what that turns into. If that 60 acres is turned into development, then you have drainage kind of getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's all going toward Bluff Road. And obviously with what we just had, I don't think anybody's looking for that or wants that, if that's all being kind of taken into effect and considered. And again, I had other things, but sticking to that 3 minutes I didn't know about, and knowing it's deferred, I'll end it at that.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll fill this card out.
Thank you, appreciate it. Sir, do you want to speak? You can come forward too, yes. Again, please state your name for the record so we know who you are.
Thank you, Commissioners, for taking the time to listen to us. My name is Steve Lassard. Live there at Lakes of Dutchtown. This property is in my backyard. Any drainage issues, that easement is in my backyard, and that would directly affect me. So if we have drainage issues, it could become a flood issue for me and my neighbors. The other issue that I had was traffic that everybody's been talking about, but I just don't know that traffic study, I just want to point this out, I think that's a flawed study. Not only was it done at the wrong time of the year, but I don't think the plants were taken into consideration. Methanex, Honeywell expansion, the recent fire down at the other plant with the big turnaround they're having there. What's happening is guys that live over in Livingston, guys that live over on the other side have now started using 74 as a conduit to get back and forth to those plants. That's the only way in and out for those guys, and that is part of it's probably 1/3 of our traffic, not to mention the 18-wheelers that come down there to offload to get over to the plants. So I think the traffic study is flawed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir. You were delayed getting here as well? Yes.
Thank you for hearing me. My name is Richard Kelly. I live in Lakes of Dutchtown as well. Other than the drainage and the traffic studies, which has been thoroughly addressed, I did agree with one of the gentlemen that said the setback lines, being relatively small, but on larger lots, would be considered acceptable. I believe that's the way it is actually in our neighborhood now. But the big difference is the actual size of the lot. The other issue that I'd like for the council to take a look at is privacy concerns. The people that live down the street that this new neighborhood will border, not having access to the restrictions doesn't exactly allow us to see what type of homes are actually going to be built. Being on small lots, are they going to be 2-story, 1.5-story with lofts? You know, what's going to go into place? Will these people be able to look over and not intentionally, but it's just loss to privacy? I myself would like to see a copy of the restrictions, just so I can get a better understanding of exactly what's going to be built. What type of safeguards are going to be built into those restrictions to ensure that the neighborhood's going to be at least partially similar to what's already there. With the smaller size lots, I'm concerned that it's going to be a neighborhood with values of the homes that are not similar to those that are immediately around it. And that's one of my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am. I know you came in late because I saw you come in late.
Oops. Well, shoot. Sorry. Fumble fingers. I live in Lakes of Dutchtown as well. My name is Leslie Dupree. Just like Richard said, one of my concerns as well is the lot size. If you look at the plat, it's almost like you will have 2 houses looking into my backyard, where I have a teenage daughter and a pool, and that concerns me with privacy as well. Like you said, probably not intentional if somebody's looking, but you just never know. We have no access to know what the restrictions are and what type of homes will go in there. So, you know, it is concerning that way. We have some issues in our neighborhood with speeding since Moss Point was added. A lot of people are beginning, because of the traffic, to cut through our neighborhood, go up Moss Point, come out Moss Point, and cut off that little stretch. Like, that gains them 5 minutes, but they do it. And it endangers our kids, our dogs. We all have a neighborhood where people are very active outside in the evenings, and the kids are always out playing. It's a safe place. So I did read something in there where they retain the right to possibly open that roadway and add another pass-through at some point. That is very concerning for us. So that's one of my big concerns, as well as the flooding and everything else that's been said and said well. So appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyways, I'll give you last words since you're the developer. And
I just wanted to say, for the organized HOAs in Lakes at Dutchtown and Moss Point, I'm going to get in touch with them and have a meeting where they can voice these concerns and any others. So all of you people in organized subdivisions can come meet with me. And then I got the Mr. Babin's phone number as well from the west side, the 10 acres. So I'm going to try to meet with everybody adjacent, and we can go over all these concerns and hopefully have a better idea of what my plans are. for next month. One last thing with regards to the restrictions, is that due at preliminary plat or at
Prior to final plat.
final plat? Okay, that's why we don't have any restrictions yet. I haven't written them yet. But his concerns over private restrictions would be the same over any subdivision. A developer could do that, not just because it's private. So I'll definitely draw up a draft of restrictions in the meantime and
maybe you could
have that
listen to
circulated.
the neighbors' concerns and
Correct.
add some restrictions
That's
that
not a
that
problem.
address those.
I'll have something for them to look at and have input on.
Okay.
And again, hopefully, we'll have a lot of that stuff knocked out before the next meeting. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. All right. Well, we'll go ahead and close. Before I close the public hearing, I just want to thank you all for coming tonight and voicing your concerns. I know that there are concerns about Oakbourne because I live in a close neighborhood in Oak Alley, and I know that some of the citizens, one of my neighbors is here tonight to speak about that. You know, we're in unprecedented times right now because of an event which, for what I've seen in my life, the worst natural disaster I've ever seen or had to live through, and that includes Katrina. In that area, there's still water that's on the ground. If you drive down Bluff Road, there are still houses that are inaccessible back in that area, and hopefully that water is being pumped out and gotten out very quickly. And it has caused a backlog of traffic. Highway 74 was closed right by my subdivision for at least a week and a half after the storm was over. Bluff Road was closed until just recently. So all the traffic that would go Bluff Road or would have you cut off one of those arteries and it all has to go somewhere else. And so 74, I'm usually coming home every night and then going somewhere, whether it's taking my daughter to soccer practice, coming here, wherever, and it is kind of it used to be hit and miss. Some days it'd be bad, some days it'd be fine. Every day since the flood, it's been very difficult. It's been backed up all the way beyond Bluff Road. So those are definitely concerns that need to be considered as we get back to normal. And I will say we have a great parish. Everybody seems to have chipped in to help out their neighbors to get through this time period. But as we recover from this, hopefully we'll return to some sense of normalcy. I would like to see, and I've said this before, you know, this event has highlighted the lack of infrastructure we have on roads and drainage, and a lot of that 74, 73, and Bluff are all state roads. And I hope our state contingent is looking at this same and knowing that they need to get down here with some money to get those roads improved. Because when you have a natural disaster and something like this happens, that lack of infrastructure on your roads really is seen clearly. So I think we all appreciate you being here tonight, express your concerns, and we're going to have this next month as presumably, so it'll be published and you can come back and speak then as well. And I don't know if any of the other commissioners want to add anything to that. No.
I would just encourage anybody who spoke today who sees these subdivisions come back up next time, October, November, December, feel free to come. Make sure you come back and speak then. Don't just assume that because you spoke today that you're going to be heard and you don't have to come back. And even if it's a subdivision that doesn't directly affect you, it's not your neighborhood, but it's another part of the parish that's somebody else's, feel free to come back and speak on those too. That's the only way change will happen. Hold us to the fire, hold the council to the fire. The only way change will happen.
Very good. Moving on, we'll close the public hearing on that. Moving on to number 10, staff report.
Staff has no report, but we're available for questions if you have them.
I don't think we have any questions right now unless any of the other commissioners do. Engineering, Mr. Saru?
Yes, just to give a total right now, we approximately have 6 subdivisions that are under construction at this time, and there are 8 sets of construction plans that are under review at this time.
All right. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number 12, motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming.